Good morning and welcome to our first curriculum webinar. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is our very first webinar through curriculum, and it is also my first webinar. So I hope there aren't too many bloopers, and thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. Today's webinar, we're going to go over, in the training, we're going to go over some resources, the course structure, and a few more items. Before we get started, just a few webinar tips. If for some reason you are unable to hear me, the presenter, try adjusting your volume or refreshing your browser window. So hopefully if you cannot hear me, you're able to see this right here. If you have a question for your presenter, please click on the chat icon. It is located on your Zoom screen. If you want to privately chat with your presenter or each other, please select a person from the drop-down menu, and that's also available by clicking on the chat icon. If you would like to leave the meeting at any time or step away, you can click on Leave Meeting. However, this will completely exit the webinar. And if you'd like to communicate with me for any reason, mostly to let me know to go slower or go faster, you can click on any of these two icons and these will appear by clicking on participants. So as I mentioned, I am your presenter this morning. My name is Hazel Rios. I currently work at Skyrocket, and my title here is Instructional Coach of Mathematics. What I do is I support curriculum by gathering some resources, and I also do these type of things like webinars and other PDs. Your chat room host today is Danielle Shiomoto. She currently works at Skyrocket as well, and she is the curriculum writer of mathematics. So throughout this webinar, we definitely want you to ask questions. If you have any comments, suggestions that you'd like to make, please just drop a line in the chat room and Danny will respond accordingly. The agenda is as follows. We have about an hour reserved for the first part of this, which is going over the course structure, a very brief look at the teacher view. We're going to take a detailed view at a module. We're going to go over what the unit activities are, and we'll talk about some challenging units, and then we'll talk about the resource folder and where it's located. The last half hour from 11:30, it might be sooner depending on how long it takes us to do the first part. I'm going to go over a unit activity demonstration. I'm going to try to do two, but we might not get through that. And then we're going to have a Q&A session. We're going to treat it more of a parking lot since you are able to interact through the chat room throughout this entire webinar. So we'll get to that at the end. And that can be reserved for something like if you want me to go over something again, you just want to take a second look at it, or I need to explain it again, that's where we can reserve that time. And this webinar is being recorded. So again, if you need to leave, please feel confident that you will have this recording available. Also, if you're not able to stay for the last half hour or you just want to step away, you can do that. All right, so we're going to start with a quick poll. The link is available in the chat room. Our chat room host has entered it there. So please go ahead and click on it so that we can respond to the question. And today's question is, how familiar are you with Edmentum? So I know that some people have already been receiving training out in the field, and some people have already assigned Edmentum courses, some have piloted. So I know that, so please respond using this scale of frowny face to happy face. Okay, so there's a few in the happy face, a few in the frowny face, that's okay. Oh, there's somebody outside the happy face. I'm going to assume that's for the happy face. Okay, I'll give it another 10 seconds or so. Okay, looks like we are evenly spread out. That's great. So this is going to help Danny and myself throughout this webinar. Since we know your comfort level with Edmentum. All right, thank you for participating. Okay, so since some of you are less confident with Edmentum or just haven't even had that experience, there is a digital course available. It comes with a certificate and a badge, and this is through our Skyrocket Ed PD. You can find this tile here that you see through your Okta. So it is available, and you can sign up for it at any time. There is information also available through the chat room. Danny has entered that information there. But please feel free to reach out if you have any questions regarding this course. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So with these integrated classes, the focus today is on integrated 1 and 2. So with these integrated classes, the structure is just like any other course that has ever been released through curriculum. It is 5 units per course. For each unit, we do have an average of 6 to 7 modules. The order of each unit is the unit modules, the unit activity, and the post-test. The graded assignments for each unit is mastery test, and since there is 1 mastery test per module, and if we have about 6 to 7 modules per unit on average, then you can expect about 6 to 7 mastery tests per unit. The unit activity and the post-test. So this is what would make up the grade for each unit. Okay, we're going to take a brief look at the teacher view. So I'm currently logged in as the teacher myself, and I have assigned 1 student, a mock student, to this course. So I want to really just show you and spotlight the main differences between integrated and other courses and in Edmentum. And so one of the main differences that you will notice is that there are no discussions within the integrated courses. And so right now we're talking about integrated 1 and 2, semester A and B for both. So there are no discussions within any of our courses. And you will also notice that we have this Dropbox activity. So if you hover over the icon, then you can see what it is labeled. This is a Dropbox activity. This is a graded activity. This is the unit activity that is in every unit. This is one of the items that this is the only item that the teacher will have to enter a grade for. Everything else will already be there for you. So this is the only one of the main differences. So again, that's the Dropbox activity and the no discussion part. And you can see the layout is very similar to other Edmentum courses. Okay, so those are the 2 main differences as far as the teacher view in the gradebook. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take a detailed view of a module. So we can access the curriculum through here as well. And I'll go ahead and show you guys this first module. And as you can see, this module here, so this is unit 1, you can expand or collapse, right? Just like any other Edmentum course. And as you can see, we have the modules here in order, as I mentioned in the gradebook, then the unit activity, and then the post-test. And students are able to access any of these items at any time. Okay, so going back to that first module, we have 3 items within each module. We have the tutorial, the application, and the mastery test. So let's go ahead and take a look at the tutorial. Every single tutorial will have this lovely video here. On the left, you will always see a toolbar. This toolbar will be available in every tutorial, and a slight variation in the application and the mastery tests. So within this tutorial toolbar, we have a table of contents, and you can navigate through the tutorial by using the table of contents. We have this resource folder. In this case, you will notice that it is empty. However, that's not the case for all of our tutorials. There's a dictionary, reading tools, translate, a calculator, math tools such as a graphing tool and other items, and a highlighter. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, Danny is in the chat room. Okay, so what we see for each tutorial is a very similar layout. We start with the followed by the lesson. And in the lesson, you will find definitions, checks for understanding, worked out examples. So we highly recommend that your students have a notebook for this class. We have slides embedded within slides. And when you get to the check for understanding, they are sometimes multiple choice, or they can also be open response or free response. Within the tutorial, anytime you have a check for understanding or practice problem, you will notice that the definitions or some main concepts will be highlighted on the left. So what happens when I have an incorrect response? It will nicely tell me no, give me a hint, and then try again. If I respond correctly, gives me a gold star. And then this option becomes available. I can click on here to see the correct answer with a brief explanation. And if it was a type of problem that required more work, I would also be able to see that here. Okay, because I'm in teacher mode, I'm able to access the next slide. However, if I were in student view, I would not be able to access the next slide without responding to the problem. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and respond to this one correctly the first time. And notice that that option is still there to view the answer with a brief explanation. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and go through all of these. So we have more of a lesson and more checks for understanding. Now notice these keys right here. If your students have ever used any type of calculator, whether online or handheld, they are familiar with these keys. So in order to enter my response, let's, again, what happens when I enter an incorrect response? Gives me a hint. I try again, and the same thing. On the second attempt, I can click on answer and it will show me the correct answer with a brief explanation. Okay. Continue through the lesson here. Back to some multiple choice type of check for understanding. And then as I sort of reach the end of the lesson, I get a short, brief summary on highlighted terms or main concepts. And then it's going to take me through a series of questions. And now notice that my hints or definitions are gone on the left. Those are no longer available. And so what happens when I enter a correct response? So this requires an exponent, so I click on exponent, enter my response. It does still, however, give me the option to view the answer. Okay, what about when I enter an incorrect response? Exponent again. It still gives me a hint. I enter again, and it gives me the option to view the answer. And notice that it shows the work as well. So this is a type of problem that required work on the student's part. So it shows the correct answer, a brief explanation with the work. Okay, moving on. As you reach the end of these practice problems, you have come to the end of the tutorial. Depending on how well you did on those problems, it will recommend some of these investigations here. So these are optional. The students do not have to complete these, but they are pretty interesting to look at. So that would be up to the student and your discretion. And then always remind your students to click save and exit, because work will be lost if they do not click save and exit. They don't want to just X out of the tutorial, they want to save and exit. Okay. The next part in the module, the next item available to the students is the application. So notice again the toolbar on the left. However, there are two items missing: the calculator and the math tools, the graphing options. Those two items are missing. So the application is, these are practice problems and they're parallel to the mastery test. So they're very similar to what you will see on the mastery test. So these are not graded, they're not part of the grade, only the mastery test is. But of course, I would highly encourage your students to go through this application so that they can practice before they get into the mastery test. So it gives you a quick review on what you learned in the tutorial. And then you can go right into these practice problems. So what happens when I enter an incorrect response? It tells me no, try again. My coefficient is wrong. Let's try a different one. Still wrong, but notice it does give me that option to click and view the answer with the work and the brief explanation. It does not give me any hints or definitions or concept review here on the left, though. Okay, when I enter a correct response, tells me great, and it still gives me the option to view the answer. Again, because I'm in teacher view, I'm able to access the next slide and the rest of the application with no problem. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and keep moving through this. And when I get to the end, it will give me the points that I have earned for this current set. If I didn't do too well, then I can click on another set and it will give me another set of problems to practice. The bank for Edmentum is quite large, so we don't have to worry about students memorizing. We can definitely believe or hope that they are learning the content here, okay? Once the students do complete another set, they will get a new score and they will be shown their previous score. Okay, and click save and exit to save their progress. And now they're ready for the mastery test. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. In the mastery test, we see again the toolbar, even more limited this time. So not only is the calculator gone and the graphing tool, but so is the dictionary. So we're down to these 5 items here. The goal is to get 8 out of 10 correct. This is set by Edmentum, not by curriculum, not by Skyrocket. So it's an 80% or above in order to meet mastery. If the student does not master, does not earn an 8 out of 10 on this test, they will have to complete it and until they earn that 8 out of 10. They'll have to redo it. Okay, so I can access again the next slide because I'm in teacher view, but again, no hints are given on the left. No, there are no definitions or concept review here on the left. And so what happens when I enter an incorrect response, it's not going to tell me whether it's not going to give me a hint, but it will tell me it's incorrect. And it won't give me the answer either. So I would just move on until I complete the test and I've answered all the questions. So it doesn't give me any hints and it doesn't show me the answer. It only tells me whether it's correct or incorrect. And I can only enter a response once. Once you reach the end of the mastery test, it gives you your score. And again, click Save and Exit. This is one type of module available within this course. We also have a slightly different type of module, and I'm going to go ahead and show you that right now. So this other type of module, I believe, came from Edmentum writing some new lessons for this integrated course. So it's not a new version of the course, it's just new lessons embedded within the old version. And so right away we can see one of the main differences is we are missing this application piece. So this is an old module, this is a new module. Notice I only have 2 items, tutorial and mastery test. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So once again, this is a newer type of lesson embedded within the course. So the course is not a new version. Okay, so we still have this video. We still have our toolbar on the left. Let's see if this one has any resources. It doesn't, but everything else is still available here, right? We have our dictionary, our reading tools, our translate, calculator, and graphing math tools. So we can still see the objective here. But now you will notice that the lesson, the layout is slightly different. The content is slightly different. It has a more sleek and cleaner look. So these are our newer lessons within Edmentum. They're kind of sprinkled throughout the courses. And then we'll notice that our check for understanding is also slightly different as far as the layout. So what happens when I answer incorrectly? It still gives me a hint and tells me to try again. I will answer incorrectly a second time, and then it highlights the correct answer. It tells me to select the highlighted in yellow, the answer highlighted in yellow, because that is the correct answer. And it will give me a brief explanation of how to do this problem. As we go through, we will also notice another slight difference within the newer lessons or the newer modules. We have what we call here a lesson activity. We will take a detailed view of a lesson activity shortly, or actually more of an explanation shortly. But while I'm here, I do want to show you this. Because I'm in teacher view, I'm able to move on to the next slide. However, a student would not without responding to each and every problem in this lesson activity. We have our math tools. which again, if the students are used to using some type of calculator, whether online or handheld, they are used to these type of keys. Okay, they are able to respond using this. When a student clicks submit, they will receive a sample answer below. These are not graded because these are embedded in the tutorial. And remember, the grade comes from the mastery test in each module, not the tutorial. But there is lesson embedded and instruction embedded within these lesson activities. So it is very important that the students try to answer these as correctly as possible. So once they're done entering all of their responses, the very last item on this lesson activity is a self-evaluation. The students will write a brief evaluation and rate their work and also what they learned and what was challenging. Once they click submit on the last item of the lesson activity, then they would be able to move on. They will also see a brief summary of the tutorial. And notice that these do not have investigations like the old modules. So that last page in the old module with the old tutorial had an investigation with recommended investigations. That's not here or available. And that's fine because remember we said those are optional. Save and exit. So now from the tutorial, we will go directly into the mastery test. Notice the layout is slightly different as well. Within these mastery tests, these newer ones, we know the students will either have 5 or 10 problems that they need to respond to. They still need to earn an 80% or better. We have multiple choice options. And in these new type of tests, we also have some drop-down menu items like this. Okay, once the students have completed their test, they would then submit and exit. So that is the main difference within these two modules. We have the older type of module, which came with the original version of this course, which includes the application. It is that practice piece before the mastery test. And then we have the newer type of modules. These are newer lessons embedded into the original course with no application piece. However, you have a lesson activity within the tutorial. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute and kind of check into the chat room and see if there's anyone that would like to ask any questions at this point. So I'm gonna everybody. If there's anyone that has a question, by all means, please go ahead and ask your question. Let's see the chat room. What's going on in there?
Yeah. But it's fine because I'm doing other stuff while.
I have a question, unless is there somebody else talking? Hello.
Please feel free to ask your question.
I want to overspeak somebody else. This is Tim, by the way. I hear background noise.
Just talk. I don't think he realizes that he.
None? Okay. Danny's doing an excellent job then.
You mentioned before the mastery test, we need to do 80%.
No. Oh, wait, maybe because my thing is muted. Hold on.
Mastery.
Can't hear you. There we go. I can hear now. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
You mentioned the mastery test, students need to get 80%. So how are we going to comply with the 70% we were asking them to do? Is that just for the mastery test, not the post test?
Oh, for the post test, it's also an 80% or higher.
Okay. Because our centers require only 70%. So how does that work?
That is a good question. Let's see if we can get a response for you. I believe your question is, if in Edmentum they're requiring 8 or higher to pass the unit technically, how does that work for our program when it requires 70% or higher? Okay, so correction is 70%. Only the mastery tests are 80%.
Hazel, if I can.
Yes.
Out. This is Carrie. I've been doing Edmentum for a long time, and I'm with the San Gabriel Charter, and pretty much that mastery test is only a star that appears, and that's an Edmentum thing. They do not need to get an 80%. However, because they are out of 5 questions, they either get a 60, an 80, or a 20, a 40. It goes in 20%. However, we are allowed to give out partial credit, which is something that if no one has trained trainer, and then if you give them partial credit and they're able to get a half credit, then they can bust
Yeah, because I just want to know.
But that mastery test aspect is just like to get mastery, you need 50% and it gives them a star. It's not required to pass. They need 70% or higher.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much for your response. I think at this point, what I'm going to do is go ahead and refer you guys to your regional trainers, because I know that hearing is a little difficult right now, and I don't want to give you any wrong information.
They keep changing.
Hey everyone, we are back. Okay, so I just want to clear up the grading for mastery, or what Edmentum considers mastery in a mastery test, is 80% or above. This will completely fill in the bubble where the students show completion of modules and other items. Anything as far as grading policy and what completes a unit, please refer to your Edmentum regional trainer for that. Thank you. Okay, so when we sent out the flyer to your regions, I embedded a question in there. And this was to help us plan for today's webinar. And the question was, as an educator, what parts of math courses do you see yourself struggling with the most? And I asked you to check all that apply. Out of 65 responses, the highest was supporting students with low skills, and that was a whopping 40 of you, so 61.5% of you responded that this is one of the most parts, this is the part that you struggle with the most. And then 40% equally for finding resources and performance tasks / unit activities. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because this is where we're going with next in this webinar. And I want you to rest assured that we read your responses and we try to come up with solutions, if not at least some support for this. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and dive into unit activities. So remember I said unit activities, there is 1 per unit. So if this is a 5-unit course, that means the student will see 5 unit activities. They're all very, they all are slightly different, and they're always at the end of each unit, but they are summative assessments of concepts learned in the unit. So they will not be completing a unit activity on something that is out of left field that they've never seen in the tutorial or in the mastery test or in any of the modules. These are explorative, investigative, and applicative in nature. And we recommend that the student print out the unit activity because remember, this is a Dropbox activity. So they will have to download it. It will open up as a Google document. So print it out, complete it by hand, and then they will still have to upload the assignment into Edmentum, and there are directions in the unit activity on how to do that. And then submit it to the teacher for grading, because I think it would be easier for the teacher to grade it if they have it in front of them versus digitally. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a unit activity. So I'm going to show you where they're located. And we're going to open up an answer key. Whoops. Back. Okay, so unit activities are located through our Skyrocket Edmentum curriculum website, and that is also available in your Okta. So this is my Okta, and you can see the tile here, Skyrocket. Okay, so within this website, we have several different options. We have updates, teacher resources, course list, FAQ, and contact us. So we're going to go to teacher resources, and this is only for Edmentum curriculum, as you can see. Okay, so beautiful tiles. We have a beautiful team here working on this very hard. So you can either go to curriculum or we have here our Dropbox activity answer keys. So this is for all of Edmentum. So first, when you initially click on this, you will be requesting access. Once you are granted access, then you can access this at any time. Notice that it is categorized by subject. So math answer keys. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Integrated Math 1 Semester A. And we'll just take a quick look at Unit 1. So this is the very first unit activity the students will see if they are taking Integrated 1A. And the layout is the same for all of the activities. You will always have your cover page with your goals or objectives listed, and these come directly from Edmentum. And then Danny Shiomoto, who's your chat room host, has created all of these for you. She's done an excellent job. She created a resource box here, and this is on every unit activity. So what is included in this resource box? We have a how to submit the Dropbox activity. So the students have this available, and as I mentioned, it is a Google Doc. And then we have these resources. These live links will take you either to an online interactive tool, a printable PDF, or an instructional video. With these resources, what we have are either some prerequisite resources that we believe the students will need to complete this activity, or some resources that are required to complete this activity. If the student, if the resource is required to complete the activity, you will also find the live link within the direction of the task, within the directions of the task. However, if it's just a prerequisite resource to kind of help them with the content of the activity, you will not find it within the directions. You will only find it up here in the resource box. And so one of the reasons we recommended that the student print out this unit activity is so that they can have these handy and click on them as they work on their activity. Okay, so as we scroll down to the task, I see that means that this resource or this link is required to complete this task right here, which is why it's available in the directions. Okay. Notice that within the responses, we have the answer. And then Danny was so kind to include a discussion. What is this discussion? This discussion can be a guiding tool for teachers. If your students come up to you and don't understand how to do it, and you don't want to just give them the answer because this is a graded assignment, you can guide them through a discussion or conversation about this task using this discussion piece that Danny has embedded in here for you. We also have a sample answer with an explanation that you can also use as part of your guiding conversation with your students. And notice all of the responses will have that in the answer key. Now this one is specifically on tiles. So you are seeing the response for this task. Okay. Now, if we go all the way to the end, we will see that there is a rubric and there were points allocated to each task, if you notice that. So each task was allocated a certain amount of points, and there's a rubric at the end, and all unit activities will be out of 100 points. Remember, again, this is the Dropbox activity, and this is the only activity or grade that the teacher will enter manually. This is the only one. Okay. So there you have a sample unit activity answer key. Once again, they're located in this teacher resource tab within our Skyrocket Edmentum website, which is available through your Okta. Okay, so a unit activity may have an average of 2 tasks per activity. However, it can have 1, 2, or 3. Challenging units. We have labeled some of the more challenging units as the ones that are heavy on lesson activities. So let me remind you which ones were the lesson activities. It was the second type of module that I showed you, the one that had a newer lesson. It was nice, it was sleek looking. That one had a lesson activity embedded. Some of these modules or tutorials can have anywhere from 1 all the way up to 5 lesson activities. Our semester B classes in both integrated 1 and integrated 2 are pretty heavy on lesson activities, which is why we have labeled them as challenging, because there is instruction embedded in these lesson activities. It is not direct instruction. It is very much explorative in nature. But this is where, as a teacher, we suggest this is where you support an advanced student learning. This is where we teach our students about productive struggle. There are sample answers, so if you are logged in as a teacher, you can always view the sample answer through the curriculum, and you're able to walk them through these. Since they're not graded, we don't want the students to just skip over them, because there is a lesson embedded within these lesson activities. So it is important that they really try their best, because the learning is happening while they're investigating and exploring a concept. Okay, this leads us to the resource folder. So what have we included in this resource folder? This resource folder is also available. Let's close all of this out. Through your Okta. So Edmentum curriculum, Skyrocket. Teacher resources. And we have this other icon here, math curriculum. So once again, you will have to access this folder. So you will request that access. Once it is granted, you have access the remainder of the time. So we have separated and categorized by course. So we have integrated math 1A, 1B, 2A, and 2B. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and click on 2B. The layout for all of the supplemental resources will look the same. So you will have the course overview, which comes from the Edmentum syllabus, our graded assignments, which is the mastery test, the unit activity, and the post-test, the course goals, which also comes from the Edmentum syllabus or integrated syllabus, and then a few tips for success. So as I mentioned earlier, definitely have students keep a notebook to take notes on definitions, worked out examples, etc. Then when you go into each individual unit, you will see that listed by module, I have some resources available. Now, I worked on 4 different courses or 4 different semesters, and I tried to focus on those newer type of modules that did not have an application piece. Because for the older type of modules where the students had an application piece, that means they're able to practice before they take the mastery test. For the newer type of modules, they're not able to practice. So those are the focus, that's where I had my focus when creating these resources. I wanted to make sure that there was a bridge between the tutorial and the mastery test. So for those specific modules, the newer type of lessons, I tried to include a supplemental resource that bridges that tutorial and mastery test. So I created either some sample parallel problems to the test. I created maybe a lesson or activity that would help them prepare for the mastery test. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. I have prerequisite resources, module resources, and supplemental module resources. If you find something within prerequisite resources, that is a resource that I included thinking this is something they need to complete this module. So for example, if they need to combine like terms, or I'm sorry, if they need to solve maybe a one-step equation, I probably included something like combining like terms or adding or and subtracting integers. Module resources are those resources that are available within the tutorial. So when I clicked on resource folder, the example that I gave you was empty. However, these come directly from that tutorial. So these are Edmentum resources. These are available within the module. And these are all live links that will take you directly to that PDF. And so as you can see, it comes directly from Edmentum. And supplemental module resources are either videos or worksheets or lessons that I thought would be helpful within that lesson. All of the courses or semesters vary depending on the content. So for example, here, I recommended a math module. These are the 20 modules that are available within your school site. If you don't have them physically available, we also have them available online, and I have a direct link here to that module that I'm recommending. Okay, so these are all going to be slightly different. Notice this is Unit 6 within Integrated Math 2B. There were no module resources. That's why there isn't a column for module resources. But I did create some supplemental module resources for this module. So this is a direct link to lesson and examples. We also have some interactive practice available for students or for teachers if they just want to read up on some concepts and become more familiar. So once again, these are separated by semester. And they're all slightly different as far as what is included in them. So here, I included a lot of supplemental module resources. So I want to point out that if you, as a teacher, facilitator, tutor, math intervention specialist, come across any resources that you feel would be great, please send them my way, as this will be updated and maintained periodically. So if you find anything that you think, oh, the students would really benefit from this prerequisite resource in this module, send it my way and we will include it here. So they all vary in nature. However, I did try to do as much as possible for all 4 courses. So this will conclude our first hour. I would like you to please keep an eye out for an email with links to the following. Teacher Resources website, which houses the unit activity answer keys, the supplemental resources that I just showed you, and this webinar recording. I will also include a link to a survey for our very first webinar and my very first webinar as well. And I would like you to stay tuned for a unit activity demonstration. I will be demonstrating a unit from Integrated Math 1B, Unit 7, which is a geometry unit, and it is involves an interactive tool called GeoGebra. So I'm going to demonstrate that unit activity after our short break. So if you're not going to stay with us, thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, the chat room is still available, or shoot us an email and we will include you in our email for these resources and recording. If you're staying with us, please hang tight. We will be back after a short break. Thank you.